You don't want this hitting you in the head. In this episode of Aston1936.com, I'm going to show you how to change the gas struts that hold the hood up. On my car, I started to notice progressively over time that the hood would be willing to sag a little bit. So I actually had an event when I was doing my annual service where I jiggled the car a little bit and the hood fell all the way and slammed on its own. That could spike you in the back if you happen to be leaning in. Also, it could break some of the structures, could dent the bodywork. So that's a bad thing all around. But you can see here, you know, this isn't something that just breaks overnight. That the gas struts, like most modern cars, there's a pair of them, but they have seals and they wear out over time. Mine's 15 years old and it's finally given up the ghost. You probably see the problem even more when it's cold out because the seals work a little less well. So this is one of the easiest jobs there is to do on your Aston Martin. It only takes maybe 10 minutes to tackle, and let me show you how to do it. Parts-wise, it's pretty simple. You only need two things. You need two brand new struts. These are available for a reasonable price from Aston Martin. Unlike a lot of parts, these ones are modestly priced. So I'd suggest you just go and reach out to Aston and get them directly from them. They're made by a company though called, they're called Liftomat. There's a website on here that says www.stablelist.com, and there's an Aston Martin part number on here. So if you check out my companion blog article, I'll have links and photos to the details of that. But basically you get two of these bad boys together, and we just need a couple of tools to put them in. Tools wise, we don't need hardly anything. This is a really easy project. But you will need a small tipped flat blade screwdriver, and the handle length isn't all that important, but I've got a fairly long one here. We do need a couple of supplies. We're going to, some masking tape would be a good idea because we're going to mask off some areas we don't want to accidentally scratch. I have a tube of white lithium grease. It's just general purpose grease that you use for lubricating hinges and things, but we are going to put a little dab of grease in the balls when we're doing it. And we're going to want to have at least a shop rag or a microfiber towel we can use to wipe off the old parts when we're working on them. So I wanted to point out how the retaining clips work for the ball and socket. So you can see these little sort of tines that are basically from the spring clip that wraps around the back of the head, and these just grip around the edge of the ball once they're installed and keep it from popping off. So it'll help to see how it comes apart. There's actually these grooves that are cast into the strut, and you can just tug it up. So I'm tugging it up gently. I'm trying to make sure it goes up evenly on both sides. And when it's up, you can see that basically both of the little tabs have retracted, and I can get it up over the ball much easier. And then if I let it back in, you can see the little tabs appeared back to grip onto the ball. So let's get these lubed up. I want to make sure that there's a little bit of grease tucked away in there. So I can actually, it'll be tough to see on camera, but there is a little bit of grease in the bottom of this socket. This is an articulating joint. Every time you open and close the hood, right, the ball rotates inside the socket. There should be some grease. So there is a little dab of factory grease in there. If you aren't sure, you could always take some white lithium grease and put a little dab in. How much is a dab? Well, about that much is a dab. So you can just basically put this into the socket and give it a little squeeze, a little twist, and there you go. That way you can be sure you've got a little bit of lubricant inside the socket. So let's get started putting them in. But the first thing I want to talk about actually is a tip. Once we've disconnected one of these struts and the other one's already weak, this thing's going to come plummeting down in a crashing hurry. So we need to have either a helper, so your sweetie, friend, somebody that can stand there and hold the hood up for you while you're doing this. My friend is holding the camera, So we're gonna cheat, and here's a little hack. Just because we have camera tripods around the shop for videoing, I've got the tripod in here, adjusted the leg height, and I'm just gonna use the camera tripod tucked in here down to the slam panel to hold the hood. You can, loosen off a leg or whatever. You can cut a broomstick, but honestly, your friend is probably the quickest and easiest thing. But for us, you may see this in the scene, but that's what it's doing, is it's holding the hood up. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna use the painter's tape, or the blue masking tape, and we're gonna give ourselves a little protection. I'm worried that since I'm gonna have a sharp, scratchy screwdriver around my nice, gorgeous paintwork, I wanna make sure I don't accidentally scratch stuff as it comes loose. So a little bit on the fender, a little bit underneath the socket, and then even up here, I'm gonna put just a little bit of tape because I'll be stabbing this direction. All right, I've got my parts nearby, I've got my grease and rag nearby, so let's get the old one loose. So I usually do the easier one first, because that's gonna take the stress off the strut. So let's get the top one loosened off first. So I pry it underneath, I'm just pushing away with my thumb, and my helper is now holding the weight of the hood. You felt that pop, all that, you saw that kind of shake on down. So now it's loose. Now I'm gonna very gently try and prise my way in just a bit down there. And there you go, one strut removed. So now I'm going to use my shop rag and clean up these balls. All right, and I'm going to put a little bit of extra grease, just a dab, on the ball. This is just regular white lithium grease I have for lubricating hinge pins and other things on the car around the shop here. So that's good to go. So now I've got my new gas strut. Orientation, the body goes up to the top. Now, I talked about, we could slip the screwdriver in advance just to spring back the clips a little bit. So I'm going to try that here. That was pretty easy. A little bit of grease squirt out. I'm going to scoop that off. But yeah, I'm on already. Clips in place. Now on the upper, it's easier. I think you can just push it on right over the clip, and that's it. So make sure it's clips fully seated or on completely, and that's all there is to it. So I'm going to remove my tape. Let's go over and do the other side real quick and fast forward. All right, that just took a couple of minutes to install those. So let's see how it feels now coming down. Oh yeah, it goes back up by itself. So big difference. To actually measure that difference, I'm gonna cut away now to another scene where we're gonna take the old struts and measure them, the strength it takes to compress them versus the new struts, and we'll see what kind of difference we end up with. Oh, this one feels soft. $67. Well, that's pretty cool. You can see there were a lot more strength in the new struts. So, you know, just again, so now it'll even hover at that point where it would just collapse before. So we're all set now. I can work safely under the hood. Now, this isn't the only set of struts on the car. There's gas struts for the doors that hold the swan wing doors open, and there's gas struts on the trunk. If your front struts have gone, it's very likely that the other sets of struts are probably due for replacement or close to failing as well. So you might look at changing those out. I'll have a link to one of those videos up here on how to do it. Down here, you're going to find the companion blog article where I'm going to show you where you can get the parts. It'll also document these steps. If you like videos like this, and I hope you do, please subscribe. And as always, I love to hear your comments. Please leave those down below. Thanks for watching.